Good evening, guys. Welcome back to the Malaysia Architecture Education Online Series, proudly presented by MASA. Hope you guys are doing well and thank you for joining us tonight. This is actually our 28th lecture series so far. So for those who are still new, MASA is actually in full is Malaysia Architecture Student Alliance, which is a non-profit student committee acting directly under PAM, which is Pertubuhan Arkitek Malaysia. MASA consists of student representatives from all architecture institutes in Malaysia. During this time, MASA and PAM have decided to launch this online lecture series for students to be more productive and gain more insight. Architect Adrianta is the head of PAM Education, and Dr. 𝐷𝐢𝐳 is the convener. My name is Iris, a MASA representative from UCSI University, and I'll be your MC for today. So tonight's topic will be manifestation of architectural design concept. I'll first introduce you our speaker, which is architect Faris Hilmi. He has teaching experience of all range since he had been teaching since 2013. So students which are from Taylor's, City University, Mara, or SEGI might know him since he had been teaching there. He's also a director in Hilmi Farida Architects and their Berhad and a principal in Architect Faris Hilmi. He's practicing balance between education and industry, striving to provide to the industry with quality graduates to support the industry locally and at an international level. All right, guys, so relax. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the talk, but if you have any question during the share, feel free to type down in the chat box so we can attend to them at the end of the chat. All right, so without further ado, I would like to invite AR Faris Hilmi. Hi, AR Faris Hilmi.
Hi.
Hi, so your computer's webcam is actually off already, just for your information.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So I'll pass the ground to you, yeah?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Iris. Thank you to PAM Education Committee, MASA, and then family and friends. Thank you for joining today's talk. So today is we are talking about the manifestation of architecture design concept and insight for students' understanding. All right. So this is quite interesting topic because I believe many students have struggled in understanding in a more deep meaning. All right, so as an introduction, let's go for the fundamental of the concept. This webinar is hopefully help architecture students to straighten up their understanding about the most complicated topic in design studio is the concept. A lot of students don't do it right. Either it is half-cooked or not even related at all. And sometimes, most of the time, they start the concept after all the design has been done. Last minute work before presentation also, this is the famous thing. You design certain thing and then it looks like a wave. Okay, that's my concept, wave. Although it didn't started as wave, maybe something like shell or anything else, but because maybe wave sounds looks more cooler, okay, we go for that. But the thing is, it's not as like that, you know. And then another one, if you don't get more things, I also have my own architecture education channel. You can subscribe or share and give suggestion in my next video for architecture education tips. Yeah, I also have my own channel, youtube.com/FarisHilmi. All right, let's go for the agenda. Okay, I only have 3 agenda to talk on tonight. All right, what is the manifestation architecture design concept? Number 2, the 3 pillars of architecture concept. This will be, I will go for the very detailed elaboration for each pillar, and then how to manifest these concept. So the most important is how do you deliver your ideas so that the message is conveyed faster and full understanding. This is the thing that many students need so that you can do the best presenting to your lecturers, your examiners. Okay, what is the manifestation of the architecture design concept? Architecture concept is the big idea, a start of a design that adds art, flavor to solve problems and potential on a site. So to get understanding of the concept in school is the best thing because it is the shortcut for the actual work. So when you are graduating, the lecturer, your boss will not talk us about this anymore. We just simply ask you to design. And then it's not about 14 weeks anymore. It will be 2 weeks work and then produce it. So pillars. How do we find these pillars? 3 pillars of architecture concept. Okay, so the first concept, they have they have 3 parts. Okay, the number 1, I put it as 2.1, the concept approach, and then number 2 is the people or problems and potential, because this is the hardest part where a lot of things dwell with this. And then lastly is the site, where you have the site and typology. Because of this site and typology, there is no two architecture that is same in this world. Although you are taking a photostat, put like Bilbao Museum from the original location to Malaysia, it's still not the same thing. It still have different in terms of contextual response, culture, and so on. So the concept will not be the same thing and will not be the complete if these 3 pillars of architecture concept is not addressed. Okay, so you must have these 3 to deal before you proceed to complete your concept. Okay, so if you have a concept, for example, student asks, if I just want to have a wave as my concept, is it okay? Is it wrong? Is it right? So my answer is actually it's not wrong, but it's also not right, because it is half-cooked method. It is not a complete concept. You must have to completely solve these 3. Okay, so let's go to the first one, concept approach. There are 5 types of concept approach that I study, and then I summarize into a simple one for you students and fellow friends to look at. Okay, number 1 is problem solving. Number 2 is philosophical ideas, and then serendipitous discovery. Next would be the artistic innovation, and as a whole, it is symbiotic approach. Let's go one by one so that I can explain detail. Problem solving. This is one of the easiest concept approach that students should learn, and then students also must at least try once. There are thousands of methods to solve any single problem. Usually, the architect see this solution as the best, but sometimes the outsiders may and always see other solutions better. In the end, the architect is the person who deals with the client's needs. You must remember, because the architect who deal with the client, because client has bringing his own problems and potential. So this is one example I take from the big architect. First, you start with the site. You study the site. You get the brief from the student, from the lecturer, sorry, from the client. So maybe it becomes like that after you study the site. And then you impose the typology into the site, and then the other needs in the buildings. Next would be solve the people problems and potential. So in the end, the design is completed like that. So this is the example of big architect, New York 57 West. This very simple approach of problem solving in design. This method need to be studied very, very hard. It's not as easy as he thought, because what he just solved is only for the client's need, but he didn't show how he solved the contextual response and then the culture's needs surrounding the site. Of course, I believe big architect 𝐷𝐷𝐼𝐸 already solve all these contextual response problems and potentials. But what he shows here is just as basic as possible how he come up with this design. So as a student, you can use this method. There is no wrong with this. You can start at least one time when you are solving a design. Okay. Okay, so number 2, philosophical ideas. Philosophical idea lives in the mind of the creator and can never be proven. This type of idea, however, can still have vast residual effects. For example, the idea of eternal recurrence. Some students take quotes from architects and then make it like a philosophical ideas. Actually, quotes by architects is not enough because architecture philosophy has deep thought process. Looking at the one's single project is not enough also to understand one's philosophy. You must at least look at maybe 10 years of one's architect's journey to understand how the philosophy works. Okay, for example, in the one that I show here is sketches of Santiago Calatrava. See, this Santiago Calatrava is quite famous architect, more famous in the early 2000s compared to now. But his philosophy is the one that always interests me, because his philosophy is actually studying anatomy of human and animals and nature. And then because he is a trained architect and also engineer at the same time, so he used his philosophy to create buildings. So when you see design like this, the birds, or the second one is actually the eye, and even he just simply draw a hand and then suddenly it becomes the structure. Actually, this is how he interpret anatomy, and then he studies endoskeletons, bones, and how these endoskeletons works with muscles, and he translate one at a time to become structures or forms of his buildings. So with this, actually need a lot of studies, sketches, and also a lot of configurations. So with this alone, you need to delve into this method very deep so that you can gain your own philosophy. As a student, I feel if you want to go for this method, yes, you can, but allow yourself to study one type of architecture, your own style, for at least the whole session of degree and then masters, and then practicing it. Then actually you can strongly become to have your own philosophy. But this is not the only point. That is the next one, which is artistic innovation, number 3. When you are actually have your own philosophy, like Santiago Calatrava, this is one example. Valencia City is done by him, Santiago Calatrava. Okay, this is the part where in the previous slide I show that there is a one eye, because actually this building, the science center, is representing the eye, seeing, because the concept of this science center, because you see you see all the technologies, beauty of nature, and so many things through your eye. And then this is the eye that he's actually creating. Since eye is not easily can be built as a spherical building, so what he did cleverly, he create the lake as the reflection to create the full eyeball. And actually, if you see, this part actually is, you can fold up, so it can be open up. So it's like the eye, and then exposing the iris inside. That's how the beauty of design is. So as an architect, I try to simplify this to be, there are 3 types of artistic innovation, which is the metaphor, biomimicry, and abstract. Biomimicry and metaphor is 2 similar things, because most of the time, biomimicry is mimicking at the nature. That's why it is bio, the nature, and mimicry is copy. So most of the time it's about that. And metaphor is very similar, but in these 2 terms has been used in different era. Metaphor, architecture, metaphor of this and that, usually been used in the early 2000, or maybe earlier than that, in the 90s in Malaysia. And then lately, in the after 2010, the biomimicry words is being used more compared to metaphor. But from my opinion, it is very same thing. And then another one is abstract. Abstract usually come from the word art itself, and then it actually come with the, for example, like different kind of art style, like cubism, from the painting, then you translate into architecture, and then the works of sculpture, by using unique materials like what's that called, buloh ke, besi, or steels, timber, and so on, and then you translate into architecture. Some very little students try to use abstract method from painting or interpretation of certain ideas to translate become architecture, because this is the harder part compared to the biomimicry and metaphor. Biomimicry and metaphor is quite easy, because you study, even, for example, fingers alone, you can form into many kinds of creations. Even this one hand, you have, many ways to fold your fingers, and that alone can create unique types of design. Even talking about that can be very long, but it doesn't matter now. What matter is the next one, Because once you have philosophy and the artistic innovation method, you will keep on doing the process of testing, sketching, create models. And that's why serendipitous discovery and other steps of concept is being introduced here. It is the idea that he's coincidentally developed without the intention of the inventor. As a start, manual sketches, physical model is the fastest way to discover, especially for first years. You only have access to this. You are not allowed to use computer yet. Why? Because you must always remember the computer is at the head, and then in the brain, that is your biggest computer. And then your hand is the fastest printer. Either it is printing on a sheet of paper or printing it as a shape of a model. So you can do it both. So the thing is, when you are in the first year students, you will see this these models has been developed in the first year, usually first semester of the architecture. You will learn this because this is actually to polish your skills, and then to delve into your art, because inside yourself there must be certain art style that you want to do. So this is the thing that you are going to polish yourself. At the same time, after being teaching a few years from foundation to masters, I've seen actually some students have consistency when, for example, this model using certain angle of shapes, and then actually this student that I'm showing this model, he's already graduated his degree, his architecture style is still almost similar to what he did in the first year. What I'm saying is that students develop what they love, and when they discovered the right path of what they love, they will continue doing it. So once they already find something that is they comfortable of, because of this practice, serendipitous discovery, and then relate back with the philosophy, and then relate back with the artistic innovation, hard work of pushing your technique, your skills, actually proven that you are carving yourself to be the right architect, this very, very unique architect. Okay, so next is the next one, sorry, is computer-aided discovery. This uses a computer in order to widen the possibilities of research and numeric possibilities. Okay, if you see Santiago Calatrava sketches and some buildings, what he did is actually, during his time, when his golden era, actually computer has not been very well developed. The 3D printing also not yet well developed. So he sculpted his building with his own hand to create what he wanted. But now with 3D printing, you can discover a lot more possibilities. With proper practice, when I said your brain is your computer, your hands are the printer, and now you use better tools to create more interesting forms. This is the way that you do it. because you know some of the things that can't be done by your own hands, you did formulas to create certain things, and then emergence of the what's that, parametric architecture. Parametric architecture emerged from this computer aided discovery. So that's why it is always related to serendipitous, because when you start doing certain form, what you need to actually, you maybe at one angle you already like it, but the other angle you need different formula, you know. So when you have different formula and then suddenly it sparks, okay, maybe accidentally you get something else which is maybe unique to yourself and you like it, and okay, now this is my final form of the building. So this is the part of serendipitous discovery where you're using computer as tool. Okay, I believe so far you guys are doing okay. So let's move on. Symbiotic approach. Combining two ideas, you know, two or more ideas. So when you have certain ideas you want to combine, for example, like these two robots become another robot. Some of you might know this, but some maybe not. This is a quite old robot coming from Evangelion, and then with Iron Man, and maybe you can create a new one, but it's your own interpretation which part of the build form is going to be Iron Man, which part will be Evangelion, but it is your own way. But in this example is the shape of Evangelion with the color scheme of Iron Man. It can be reversed, right? For example, in the shape of the Iron Man, but it is the color scheme of Evangelion with the different kind of helmet. It can be that way too. It is totally up to your interpretation, how you wanna absorb these two ideas together. So you are the author of your own creation. So with this, you can create so many beautiful methods of concept. But remember, this is only one part of the concept, which is the approach. All right, so let's move on to the number 2, people, who are actually the problems and potential. People is the biggest problem in design. Why? Because you, as a student, from your point of understanding, you are only deal with the lecturer. But at the same time, the lecturer have to think for you how the client is, the end user, the public, and with so many factors, which is function of the building, privacy issues, safety issues, comfort of the spaces, cultural context, or special needs. So there are so many things that you have to think. So students, you will learn the simplest function of building to more sophisticated building typology that don't require expert within the first 3 years. So start with your own house and then become bigger, and then you move on to the more sophisticated thing with more complex, more contextual, cultural response. You have to make the building become smaller in terms of privacy and bigger public spaces, and then there are so many complicated things. But you will learn this one at a time. Okay. However, there is a way to solve this thing. I will talk about that later. Let's go to the number 3 of the concept, which is the site. Okay, so there are a few things that you must consider. Site analysis is the most important part of the concept. I wish I can have a different session, just talk about site analysis. But today we talk about concept. So site analysis, I have to push it away. So we only focus on concept. Just a quick one, site analysis. Many students and most of the students usually only performing data collection. Data collection is only first step of site analysis. It is not analysis yet. Analysis must be done another step after you do the data collection. And most of the time, I give you a quick example. Most of the time, site analysis, you must question why. For example, this site has a very busy road and one side, and the other side is very clear. So the busy road most of the time in the morning and then in the evening at certain hours. And then that's it. I was quite shocked because there is no analysis from that point. However, there are more. For example, why it is highly traffic during that time. There must be a reason. So the analysis might go to, it must be because of people are going to work. And then another time, which is the evening, is because of people coming back from work to home. So that is the analysis. Example. Another one is when you have traffic is high in the site area, you will also discover air pollution, noise pollution. So those are the chain reaction from the data collection. Okay. Other than that would be how you are handling SWOT analysis and also 5 senses when you are doing site analysis. This is the part also need to be polished more in terms of your own understanding. Maybe not today, it's not enough time. However, I will create a different session for this. But when you are doing site analysis, either you putting in SWOT or 5 senses, must remember one more thing, which is ask the question to each data with sustainable questions, which relate to the economy, relate to the environment, and also cultural context. When you ask questions that relate to this, you get solid answers, solid analysis. All right. Besides site analysis, the site itself must have building context, history, vegetation, local issues, and legal frameworks. Legal frameworks at this level, for example, degree, you need to understand what type of land it is. Is it private or government, or is it what different kinds of building typology that can be done there? Is it only for industry or commercial building? And then you got to understand the setbacks of for the site. So all these you got to, you have to train yourself, go to the authority, ask questions with them about the site that you are doing in, and actually it helped you a lot to perform better in the future. Okay, so other things like all these building history, vegetation, local issues, these are very basic, but this is the thing that you must go through for the site. And the next one is the typology. This is another important part of the concept. When you are doing certain building typology, there are a few things that you must study. Number one is the building typology itself. You must remember you got to be specific. Always specific. When I'm talking about specific, for example, you want to do your lecturer say this semester you are doing science center. So be specific. So each student might have different kinds of science center, right? So one of the example, okay, maybe aeronautic science center. So when you are doing aeronautic science center, you do building typology that is exactly about that, aeronautic. Don't study science center in general. It will be totally different thing. It has different space requirement. It has different end user requirement. All right. The next one is precedent study. This is another things that maybe students do not understand the difference between building typology study and precedent study. Give me 1 second. Okay. Precedent study is actually a study of a building to solve the problem that's similar to your problem. Okay, so you have a problem. Precedent study is actually looking for answers of similar problems to yours. It might not be necessarily same building typology. For example, again, for example, you are doing science center in a site that is very, very narrow, like maybe 40-meter width with 200-meter long. So with that kind of situation, you have to find precedent study that give same answer to your problem. Maybe you need to find a very narrow, long building that have, you must able that answers your problem. So you are studying how the architect answer to that problem. At the same time, looking for potentials when you are doing this kind of precedent study. So I hope you can understand the difference between the two, building typology and precedent study. It is separate thing. So when you have these two types of building study, then at the same time, you must list down what kinds of problem you are solving. So these two must able to solve whatever you need to know. And that's what architecture is all about. Okay. And one last thing is this one. Most of the time, students always think as a user. If you have time, switch your mind, think differently. think like a building owner. Why? Because you are doing architecture, you have to do design the building as a whole. You are not doing a building only for user. And for example, science center, you are not doing the building for the visitors alone. You have to do the total complete of the building. Example, library. As a user, what you know about library is you go to the entrance, you see a counter, register yourself as a library user, get tickets and cards and so on, go to the library, go to the computer to search what book, and then from what book, you go to the book sections, right? From book sections, you take your book, what you need, and then go back to the counter, register the book under your name, and leave. That is only user experience. But that is not the whole building, because there are a lot more things happen behind that counter. So when you think like a building owner, the library, first of all, as a library owner, what do you must have? Number one, security. Security of your products, of your things. Number two, flow of your stuff and flow of the users. And then number three, where you gonna hide all the ugly parts of your building. So when you have that, okay, so when you think like a building owner, you start to design building as a whole, where have public and private. And then all these overlapping spaces, which is semi-public and semi-private. When you have this, the gradients of privacy, you must identify it. So after now, when you think like a building owner, then you can, okay, now I know more. What I know is that behind the counter, they are receiving books from returning books location part. They must have sorting area. From the sorting area, they also have another part, which is the auditor checkbook. Is it fully complete or some pages missing? Already done that part. Then sorting, send back to the original rack, and so on. So there are many more steps that returning the book. And then that's not all. Think about the numbers of your own staff, librarians that work for you. How many you need? One at the counter, one at the sorting space, one that send back books, and then one who only check the computer server, and so on. Actually, there are a lot. You need more than 5 staff, maybe more, for a small library. And then that's not all. Your staff must need their own space, resting space for your staff. You need offices, meeting rooms just for you and your staff, and so on. So there are more things that you will discover when you switch your mind, instead of think as an user, but now, and start from today, think differently as the building owner. You will get there. You got to train yourself later. And actually, when you do this, you able to be very strong architect. Okay, So now already go through all three parts of the concept. Let's conclude this. We have concept approach, we have site building typology, and then people where you have to solve the problems and potential. So, example, KL Modern Art Gallery, folded architecture as center of art culture in Pasar Seni. This is an example of a proposal. Okay, but behind this, these words are not just words, not just making it looks cool, but this, the whole thing is what I call the concept, the complete concept. Why? You have to dissect it. Folded architecture, that is your concept approach. Center of the art culture is the solving problems and potential, you know, and location in Pasar Seni is the site. So when you are doing a proposal, this is how you write down your topic, your biggest topic, and then how do you set this? So with this concept, now your proposal, your project becomes complete. This word alone able to give full insight of what you are trying to propose in the final presentation later. When you have this, it is already almost complete. What the lecturers, the examiners want to see is your product, right? So when you are doing this, let's try this. Maybe this semester or next semester. Don't worry. Okay? So now we are just completed our first part, no, second part. So the third part is the manifest, the concept. Okay, give me 1 second. Okay, so you need to sketch, okay? Because architect read drawings and it is proven 80% effective. Architects and lecturers easily picked up and understand faster the idea is being conveyed instead of essay writing. This sketch is actually my student in UITM. What he did is sketch all his ideas and all the studies that he did. As a quick one, we can see that he understand what he wanted to do, what he wanted to convey. Second part is reading the diagrams from this sketch. Let's try to zoom in. Maybe we can see a little bit detailed. For example, like this one, experiential path, he has different methods of experiential path just to tell the lecturers and examiners there are more than 2 or 3 types of experiential path that human is actually working, experiencing. All right, that's not the thing that I'm gonna talk about. What I want to say is how people convey the message very fast. And then next is actually segmented this, you know, when you give these segments, it's actually very easy. You know, we architect, we think in different, you know, segments. Different segments have different functions. So this is also another way to making things clearer. besides that, infographic communication. This is actually the universal language. Icons means the same thing in other language. For example, like car. In English, it is car. In Malay, it is kereta. In other language, Mandarin or Hindu may have different types of language, but it is still a car. So infographic communication actually is making your message become faster. You simply impress your audience and at the same time add unique zing to appeal in your presentation. Easy to change colors and photos and text. So it is actually helping you and also the examiners and lecturers to understand your idea. And then add mind map to it. It becomes a lot more better to effectively telling your ideas. And reduce bombastic words. You can use bombastic words, but only for certain punchline, not every sentence. And then simple explanation always needed, because car alone cannot be the biggest answer. You maybe need to know what kind of car. Some explanation is actually needed. So that actually helps and becoming more effective. For example, this one, they have certain explanation, simple and effective. So that's how you arrange your concept and then making it simplified so that you can able to less talking about the concept, and then if the lecturer and examiners can easily and fast understand your idea, it's easier to move on to the design and then the rest of the drawings and the whole presentation. Okay, so executing the concept manifestation, you need the steps. So these are the normal steps that students are going through. Number one is start investigation on the first week of the semester, and then you go there, you identify immediately problems and potential by observation and also by talking to surrounding people, because these problems and potential always related to people. Induce concept approach. Okay, this is the thing that I'm talking about, 5 things, all right? Then elaborate, then you just able, if you can explain deeper, then that's better. If you need simply explain a little bit, a lecturer can understand, then that's good. So, and then besides that, you also must solve the problems that you identify. Okay, once you solve, you sketch. You sketch to solve. You sketch to elaborate. This is the way you do it. And then at the same time, maybe you have different architecture style that you have compared to the your friends. So put it in your architecture design. And last but not least, in the presentation, is your the most impressive must be infographic. Nowadays, these are the things that you must do it. What you have to do, you must always, you have friends, so you just need to share with your friends. So infographics, icons, for example, maybe you and friends, maybe 2 or 3, always share things together so that you don't have to work hard. So this is how you can work smart or on the presentation. So when you going through this is always the number, right? 14 weeks of per semester. I usually separate into these 482. 4 is the executing the site investigation, site analysis, introduce concept, introduce solution, and then the 8 number in the middle is for you to develop your design, develop more technical works, drawings, and so on, and allow yourself 2 weeks to do final presentation. When I go through this, actually it's actually quite easy for students. What you have to do is actually when you hit 2 weeks before the final, you must stop and then immediately design your presentation. Okay. All right. Looks like it's about to conclude. Formulating an architecture design concept is to unveil the ideas effectively and at the same time reducing the stress level of reading and elevate the understanding for a better assessment. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, 𝐴𝐴. So basically, there's so much that we learned. So I hope all the audience actually jot down the key points, because especially for those who are new to the architecture course, I think this really clearly explains how the design process from the starting and how the product will be, how the outcome should be, like how to make a good architecture. So if you guys didn't catch all the key points, actually this session will be uploaded in our YouTube soon. So you can actually look it back at our MASA YouTube. Okay. So once again, thank you, 𝐴𝐴, for the insight. Okay.
Thank you. Welcome. You are welcome.
So the audience have been hitting in some interesting questions. So firstly, it's from Celine. She has a few questions. So first is, how do you know what's the style that suits you? Will it be wasting time testing different styles? Yeah, that's the first question.
Okay. Should I answer this one first?
Yeah.
Okay. What style that suits you? Of course, this is sometimes a very hard question, but if you look into yourself, there are things that actually you love. For example, like me, when I was a kid, I used to love to play with origami. And then when I joined architecture, I got lost because I didn't know that origami is part of art and it can be architecture too. I discovered that at the end of my degree, final semester. Actually, and when I tested, I really love what I did. You know, so knowing what style that suits you is not wasting time. The whole process of the degree itself alone actually will make you find what do you really like. And sometimes marks don't matter when you love at certain things. For example, like me, when I discovered that I love folded architecture because it related directly from origami, actually I happy with my end product and the marks didn't matter as long as I happy doing it. And at the same time, I solve whatever the problems in the project. Actually, those are the things that giving you start. sometimes it's not enough to discover when you are doing in the first year, and then the second year you want to try different things. It's always happened that way. But don't worry about that. What you are doing is actually already the right thing, because your mind is actually doing it for you without you are noticing it. You are already on the right path. It's just that sometimes you don't feel, you feel this not confident enough, because you always put marks that matters. For example, when you do one style, for example, for the architecture, I got C, but when I do very cubic building, I got A. It didn't mean that that thing is your style. It's just because you did it simple building, you solve all the contextual response, culture things, you solve all the matters, but in your heart, you still like, for example, for the architecture, those are the things that, there is no wasting time. In architecture, there is no wasting time. That's all.
All right, thank you. So I think you should go happy with your own style. Okay, so the next question will be, after graduating and working in the real world, how can we still use this concept of our own style, with our own style?
Okay, this is actually another interesting question, very important at the same time, because yes, all of us want to be architect of your own, and also want to be designing everything. Okay, when you just started work, you are under your own boss, correct? You have a boss. Your boss have your own style, his own style or her own style. Okay, you always remember 10% at one time. Okay, for example, your boss always like modernism, but you like contemporary. This is the example. Okay, you just induce your style 10%, then allow the boss idea concept 90%. It's okay. One at a time, one step at a time. If you able to induce 10% of your own style and then merge with your boss idea, this is actually one achievement, because next step is add one more 10%. And one day, the boss will let you do everything on your own. And that is where you start to flare.
Okay. So I hope that answers your second question, Celine.
Mm-hmm.
So the next one is, what do you think your style is? Well, I'm guessing your style is origami style because you just mentioned. Okay. So until today, how are you using it?
Okay. Very interesting question. Okay. Yes, I started to love origami folded architecture at the end of my degree. However, this couldn't be translated directly into my work, because we in Malaysia, we have clients, budgets, and so many things, that not allowing you to do what do you love to do. But like I said, putting 10% at a time actually do work. Okay, don't be very, very ambitious. Okay, if you have your own budget to open up your own firm immediately after graduate, that's the best. But it still couldn't answer the client's need. So again, when I just induce 10% of my style, to the client and the client is happy, it is achievement for me. Then the next client will be more, next 10% bigger. So with that kind of step, I somehow able to do what I wanted to do, and I have 1 or 2 projects that I really enjoy working on it.
So hope that answers all your questions, Lee. Okay, so next question is from Samlin.
Mm-hmm.
Do you mean concept is not shape but provide solid solution to problems? If so, why we are so tied up to form and shape?
Okay, concept approach is actually where do you induce your architecture style and art. If you look at the slides that I went through just now, the artistic innovation, the philosophy, and then the serendipitous discovery, all those are architecture concept where it is the form, the shape coming from. But I don't want to put in, I cannot say that it must be certain type of shape. It must be coming from you, right? But that's how I set the concept methods is. It must be artistic innovation. I just give a very general term, I cannot say it must be origami method, cannot.
Okay. So next will be from Nurul. So she's basically asking the simple explanation for design concept. Is it just what we are inspired from?
Okay. At the start I just mentioned that like I said, if my concept is wave, is it right or wrong, right? So like I said, the answer is half right and half wrong, because concept must able to solve, not only designing. It must also solve. And solve, there are 2 things that you must solve: clients or end user, people, and the site itself. So it's not only form making. Concept, you don't do form making alone. It must be completely solving also.
I hope that makes you have a better in design concept, Nurul.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. If anything, okay. Basically, what we inspired from. The question is about inspire. Yes, inspiration can come from anywhere. Like, that's why I said, they can come from everything under the sun. Is it like a metaphor, or another one is what, biomimicry? Because those, those nature things, they are so beautiful. Flowers, animals, or flying animals, undersea water animals. There are so many beautiful animals. You can use any kinds of inspiration. At the same time, if you can solve whatever you are having to solve with that kind of inspiration, that is the beauty.
Okay. So next question is, what do you think of Malaysia architects concept? Is it good enough to compare with other countries?
Wow. Okay. Malaysia.
Such a personal question.
Okay. First of all, Malaysia, we have a very unique culture. We have very long history. We also have that history. We have facing different era of occupation, from the Japan to the British. All those things actually influence our architecture in terms of history. Okay, you can see the traditional Malay houses, Chinese houses, and then Peranakan, where there is a lot of combination, right? If you study history, those are the beauty. Because why? Number one, they solve the environmental issue. Number two, the culture context. They are Chinese. For example, Chinese peranakan. The concept is coming from the Chinese and then have some English influences, and then the location is Malacca, for example. It solves everything. The needs of the environment, the needs of the human of that time, around 1600, right? So actually, they already solve everything, and the concept is very well jive together. There is no wrong in the concept, you know. Yeah, that everything is there, and you know that's why it's very unique. Malaysian architecture is already very unique. You know, you can't find this kind of architecture in other places. For example, Malacca and Penang maybe have similar architecture language, but it's not exactly the same because, for example, Malacca shop houses, the lots are very long and narrow, but you can't find the same in Penang. So I said it is very, is it good enough to compare to other countries? Yes, it is very good because the architecture solves the needs of the environment era of that time, and also the it is not too harsh to the Chinese, and then not too strong on the English culture, and then there are Malays and so on. Everything is well jive in the design. I don't see any problem. I hope that answers.
So actually Malaysia is so many cultural influenced architecture.
Yes,
so
yes.
I just don't compare.
Yes. It's very hard to compare, and Malaysia architecture is very beautiful. What we have to do is, again, for example, 2020, instead of looking upwards, why shouldn't we look back what we had and then reinterpret in the modern ways, especially 2020 method style. We jive that again. You know, it could be beautiful because we have new technology, we have new space need, you know, users need. We already changed, so why not we revisit again those old concepts?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
More
next question is from Sander Tan. He actually mentioned like he have a very inconsistency style. Like this time he like this style, but after that in a time you go back with a previous style. So would there be ways to get a right style for
inconsistency?
Yeah.
In terms of inconsistency, how should we reduce it? Actually, if you look at, I quite don't understand the question. Let me read again. There are certain okay. Finding the right style for yourself. Again, sometimes look at look at your hobby. Sometimes, because when I discover my hobby, I can work together with architecture. I try with my students. You know, one of my students currently in final year, the student actually love to do calligraphy. So I said, why not you try to combine this idea of calligraphy, art of writing, and then jive this style with architecture. Although the student is already in the final year, actually that student can perform better, at the same time enjoy designing, because hobby is the thing that you always enjoy, right? So you don't have the hate energy, you only have love energy. So with that, actually able to motivate the students to create more, to detail up the work more, and at the same time finishing it to the best, because it a lot of motivation in that thing. So maybe I like to say hobby, if you can merge with your architecture, why not? It could be interesting way to improve yourself and then get the right style.
I hope that answers your question, Xander. Right, so another question from Samlun. So do you think there is a mismatch between what we learn and what is happening in the market? Because he mentioned that he loves his studio work, but that doesn't apply when it comes to internship, because of money is always the, and are we being too far from the reality? Then how can we educate the public, especially the client?
There are so many layers of needs here. Okay. Yes, I also discover my students become, becoming, how to say, don't like architecture after they join the internship. Probably because of the exposure itself is not suitable, not the thing that that student wanted, and actually it becomes a deviate from architecture, and then that student become, okay lah, as long as I graduate, I happy, and then I do something else, I don't want to do architecture. Normal, I have seen this, a lot of students having that problem. So how to actually, yes, again, there are so many layers of things. Are we far from the reality? Actually, we are doing okay in Malaysia. For example, I just say simple things. Housing designs, okay. The current trend are actually doing fine. Although in general, it didn't jive with my taste of housing design, but it's okay because that is the trend. You as a designer, you must solve your problem, the people problem, which is at this time client, right? So if you solve the client's problem, you are a good designer. That's all. Because you are not, artist. There are two things you must be understand: artist and designer. Okay, artist, it's only satisfy yourself, but designer, you must satisfy other people needs, right? So artist, you want to do painting, you put all your emotions on a canvas or sculpture, and everything else. So if public look at your artwork, some people like it, some people don't, right? So what if he can sell, he happy. If he didn't sell, he's still happy, because the what he solved is his own thing. Because he is the client himself. So when you are a designer, you must solve many things, public and also client. So as long as the client happy with your design, and the public able to uh, accept this design as the new trend, then you are actually on the right track. You are doing good in design. There's no wrong. Again, if you have 10% of your own style you put there, then that's better.
That answers your question, Sam.
Uh-huh.
That's all for our Q&A session.
Okay.
Yeah, so a big shout out to Architect Faris Hilmi. If you guys want any more useful tips like this one, like this session, you can subscribe to his YouTube channel. As you
I
can
have,
see,
yeah, I already start a few. Okay lah. I have a lot more to do, but in progress.
yeah, so everyone subscribe and give him full support. So
Thank
the
you.
channel is Faris Hilmi, as you can see from the slide. Okay, so once again, a very thank you to Architect Faris Hilmi for this session.
Thank you.
And
Welcome.
thank you everyone for joining us tonight for this online lecture. We hope you all enjoyed it. So do keep in touch with our Masa's Instagram and Facebook page for the next online lecture. Until then, have a nice night and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.